You will meet them in boardrooms, battlefields, breakups, and betrayals, the ones who do not flinch. The room may burn, voices may rise, but they remain composed, unbothered, strategic, powerful. Calm is not weakness. Calm is a weapon. And Machiavelli understood that whoever keeps their head when others lose theirs does not just survive, they ascend. In a world that rewards loud emotion, those who master silence and stillness gain control without permission. This is not meditation. This is psychological warfare. And if you want to win under pressure, you must learn to stop reacting and start ruling. The moment everything begins to fall apart is the moment your real face is revealed. When the pressure mounts, deadlines collapse, someone betrays you, you're ambushed in public, or your plans are torn apart in front of an audience, that is not the moment you are ruined. It is the moment you are measured. Machiavelli never feared pressure because he understood its function, to expose. He watched powerful men shrink under scandal, generals break formation at the first sign of loss, lovers beg and explain when cornered, all because their minds were trained only for peace. Calm is not a natural instinct. It is not born in you. It is carved out in fire. You do not stay calm by accident. You remain calm because you have rehearsed the storm. Machiavelli knew that power does not belong to those who shout loudest or move first, but to the ones who can think clearly when blood is in the water. When others panic, they become predictable. And when people are predictable, they become controllable. The one who breathes slowly while others drown becomes the center of gravity in every crisis. Calm is not weakness, it is an evolutionary advantage. You must begin to see pressure not as danger, but as stage, a performance. And your role is not to scream your truth or justify your panic. Your role is to stand still while everyone else dances for approval. Calm is clarity. Clarity is power. Power is reserved for those who do not flinch, not because they are stronger, but because they trained themselves to be silent while others search for meaning. Every time you feel the tension rising in a room, in a relationship, in your own chest, remember this: the storm is not where you die. It is where you are seen. Be calm, be deliberate, be unforgettable, because when it all falls apart, most people scream, but the ones who rise, they whisper, and everyone listens. Panic is not just a reaction, it is a virus. It passes through glances, sharp breaths, trembling hands, and rushed words. One person's fear becomes the room's infection. Machiavelli understood this far before modern psychology ever caught up. He watched leaders lose armies because one soldier ran first. He watched kingdoms fracture because one advisor whispered doubt into a king's ear. And he knew this: panic is louder than any command. It overrides logic, poisons clarity, and makes fools out of the most intelligent minds. But here's the deeper truth: panic is not born from pressure itself. Panic is born from people. If you enter a room where one person is losing control, you'll feel your own breath change. Your chest will tighten, even if nothing has happened yet. That's how contagious it is. And that's why Machiavelli believed in using calm like a shield, not just for yourself, but to protect the order around you. When others see you unmoved, they begin to question their own panic. Your stillness becomes their anchor. But the reverse is also true. If you lose your center, they lose theirs. This is why true power is quiet, because loudness signals fear, desperation, uncertainty. It is an attempt to restore control after you've already lost it. But silence, controlled speech, slowed movement, that signals control. And control spreads faster than chaos once it's felt. You do not need to shout to be followed. You need to remain intact when others crack. That alone makes you the one others defer to. In crisis, people do not seek the truth. They seek the calmest voice. The one who seems least afraid becomes the one who must be right. And that illusion, even when false, becomes reality. This is why panic must never begin with you. If someone raises their voice, lower yours. If someone slams the door open, it quietly. If someone threatens you, pause, tilt your head, breathe. Your composure infects their uncertainty. They begin to wonder if they've misunderstood the situation, and that hesitation is the doorway to control. Panic comes easy, calm is rare, and what is rare is valuable. If you can become the rare presence in any room, the unmoved mind, the steady hand, the quiet observer, you become the one people orbit. Not because you demand it, but because you give them something they cannot manufacture on their own: clarity. That is why panic spreads fast. But calm, when mastered, spreads deeper. And Machiavelli would tell you the first rule of power under pressure is not to fix the problem, it is to never catch their fear. Pressure is not the enemy, it is the gate. It separates those who perform from those who pretend. When everything is calm, anyone can appear competent. But the moment tension enters, the air changes. Voices tighten, eyes dart, masks slip, and in that moment, the true order of power reveals itself. Machiavelli understood that real influence is not measured in titles, but in how you behave when the fire starts. Pressure does not create new character, it reveals existing ones. And most people, no matter how educated or eloquent, lose control the second they feel uncertain. That is the precise moment you rise. When others spiral into confusion, your clarity becomes the weapon. The calmest person in the room becomes the one others look to, not because they asked, but because they appear ready. Machiavelli observed this in courts and campaigns, in betrayal and negotiation. The man who stays calm under fire commands without speaking. People want to be led by certainty, and nothing screams certainty louder than a still, clear mind while chaos unfolds. But here is what most people miss. Pressure is not just a test of nerves. It is a shift in the psychological hierarchy. Everyone becomes exposed. The loudest may shrink, the passive may speak, the manipulator may slip, and the one who stays calm, truly calm, suddenly becomes the most dangerous figure in the room, not because they say the right thing, but because they say nothing at all until it matters. Calm during pressure creates contrast, and contrast is how memory works. You will be remembered more for how you acted under stress than how you performed in peace. That memory becomes your identity in the eyes of others: reliable, cold, capable, and people start to move out of your way. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. They have already seen how you behave when things go wrong, and it was terrifyingly still. This is why Machiavelli saw pressure not as something to avoid, but something to prepare for. He knew that the battlefield of minds is where real power lives. Most people beg for peace, but those who understand control do not need peace. They just need composure. They do not dread conflict because they are trained for it. They remain a fortress while others collapse. In pressure, people either break, beg, or become. And if you want to lead, you must become the one who does not need to be calmed, because you are the calm. The test is coming. The storm always returns, and when it does, the world will not ask if you're ready. It will simply watch how you breathe. Most people respond before they even understand. Their mouths move before their minds catch up. They react not to reality, but to a threat they imagine, and that is where they lose. Machiavelli warned against this kind of impulsive weakness. He understood that in any situation of tension, the one who reacts first usually loses control of the frame. When you react, you are already responding to someone else's terms. You've surrendered the narrative. But when you observe, first, when you watch, absorb, remain still, you begin to own the situation without speaking. Observation gives you a panoramic view, and with that view, you gain the one advantage most people never have under pressure: time. The illusion of urgency is a trap. It convinces people they must respond immediately, defend themselves instantly, prove their point right now. But the truth is, silence stretches time, and the moment you stop reacting, the entire tempo of the room shifts in your favor. People begin to wonder what you're thinking. They try to read your face. They fill in the silence with their own anxiety. That alone gives you leverage. Machiavelli understood this well. He didn't rush into debates or declarations. He let others reveal themselves. He listened. He watched their words contradict, their confidence unravel, their anger betray them. And when they had exhausted themselves, he spoke clearly, calmly, and with precision. That is what made him dangerous. Not because he was the loudest, but because he was always the last to move. You must become that presence, the one who doesn't flinch at insult, the one who doesn't explain when accused, the one who watches without blinking while others try to provoke. Because every time you choose not to react, you take a brick out of their strategy. Their plan relied on your weakness. And when it doesn't arrive, they have nothing to work with. This is what makes emotional control so terrifying to those who want to manipulate you. They cannot get in. They cannot predict you. They cannot shake you. And that mystery becomes your shield. In silence, you are no longer on their map. While they try to decode your stillness, you are already building your next move. So the next time you feel the sting of pressure, whether it's a betrayal, an insult, a confrontation, do not meet it with noise. Meet it with vision. Let the emotion pass through you like weather. Do not grab it. Do not fight it. Just observe. Because while everyone else is shouting into the storm, you are charting the map through it. And when the wind finally dies down, you will still be standing calm, unreadable, untouchable. Your face is the first betrayal. Before your words, before your actions, before any decision you make, your face has already spoken for you. And Machiavelli knew this better than most. In a court full of spies, traitors, and power-hungry rivals, he watched expressions destroy careers. The twitch of an eye, a flicker of fear, a nervous smile. These were not harmless. They were signals, and the trained could read them like scripture. That's why Machiavelli believed the face must be a fortress. Your calm must not only exist within you, it must radiate from you. It must be worn like armor. The world must look at you and see nothing it can use. No crack to slip into. No weakness to poke. Because the moment they sense a reaction, they know where to strike next. This is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming unreadable. When you enter a room during crisis, people scan your face before they listen to your voice. They are searching for certainty, and if they don't find it in you, they will look elsewhere. But if your face is still, if your jaw is relaxed, your gaze steady, your breathing controlled, you become their anchor. Calm becomes contagious, and you are its source. And this calm doesn't come from pretending. It comes from preparation. It comes from knowing that you will not be shaken, because you have already rehearsed the worst and remained intact. You've imagined the betrayal. You've anticipated the pressure. You've felt the collapse in your mind 1,000 times and survived it. So when it comes, you do not flinch, and neither does your face. This is why the most powerful people in history often looked bored in the face of chaos. Their enemies mistook that boredom for indifference. But it wasn't, it was dominance. Because while others screamed, pled, or cracked, they simply stared. A calm face in a room of collapsing ones becomes a mirror. It forces others to see their own panic, and in that reflection, they begin to follow you. Not because you asked, but because your presence gave them something their own nerves could not stability. Your face must say, I am already past this. I have already won, because the one who appears calm is assumed to be in control, and assumptions become reality faster than truth. Machiavelli's brilliance was not just in policy or persuasion, it was in the performance of power. And power, at its most potent, needs no announcement. It is carried in the eyes, held in the jaw, and delivered in silence. So the next time you feel the heat rise in your chest, lock it behind your face. Let the storm pass without touching your eyes. Because when the world tries to read you, give them nothing and watch how fast they lose the script. When pressure arrives, time does not pass normally. Seconds become sharp. Everything speeds up. Words blur together. People move too fast, speak too loud, act before thinking. This is how most people lose, not because they were unprepared, but because they let the tempo of chaos set their pace. Machiavelli understood that controlling time was one of the highest forms of power, not just time in the abstract, but perceived time, the kind that slows in the mind of the observer. In the middle of crisis, he did not move faster. He moved slower. He breathed slower. He waited longer. And because of that, everyone else began to respond to him. This is what most people forget in moments of tension. Urgency is often an illusion. You are told, you must speak now, act now, decide now. But that urgency is not yours, it is someone else's weapon. Someone wants you to hurry because they know what comes next if you pause. They know you'll see clearly. They know you'll change the outcome. That is why slowing down is not weakness. It is threat. It signals that you are not ruled by the moment. You are ruling the moment. The power of a calm presence in a chaotic room is not just about silence, it's about slowing the frame. It's about controlling the tempo. When someone yells at you and you blink slowly before answering. When someone tries to corner you and you shift your posture instead of replying. When others rush to speak and you wait an extra beat. Those small delays change the psychology of the room. People begin to wonder what you're thinking. They begin to second guess their aggression. And that hesitation, that doubt, it is the crack you walk through. Machiavelli knew that tempo is psychological warfare. If you move slower than others expect, they will question themselves. They will start to believe you know something they don't. And that belief alone gives you the upper hand, because the mind under stress wants immediate certainty, and your delay deprives them of it. You become the question mark in a room full of answers, and that makes you dangerous. In a storm, you do not run with the wind. You walk against it steady, slow, unshaken. Let others trip over their urgency. Let them fall over their need to act fast. You are not there to match their speed. You are there to set it. So the next time pressure floods in and the world tries to pull you into its panic, do not speed up. Breathe. Slow your thoughts. Say less. Move like you already know the outcome, because the one who controls the pace controls the story. And Machiavelli never rushed. He waited. He watched. And he won. Control is not always loud. In fact, the most powerful form of control is invisible. It starts with how you sit, how you breathe, how you speak, and above all, how you control yourself. Machiavelli understood this principle deeply. He knew that in every room, in every confrontation, in every negotiation or betrayal, the person who controls themselves controls the space around them. Chaos is magnetic. It pulls people into its orbit, but so is calm. If you walk into a room where everyone is spinning, and you are the one person who does not raise your voice, who does not rush, who does not fidget or break rhythm, eyes will land on you, not out of admiration, out of instinct, because your stillness suggests safety. And in a storm, everyone is looking for something that does not move, that does not react, that does not add fuel to the fire. But here is the deeper truth: calm is not passive. Calm is not silence for the sake of politeness. It is a strategic tool. Machiavelli wrote about princes who gained loyalty not through charm, but through presence, a certain weight in their speech, a certainty in their silence. These rulers did not just command rooms, they anchored them, because they never let the energy of others dictate their own. You must understand that pressure is always trying to change your temperature. If someone is angry, they want you angry. If someone is nervous, they want you shaky. If someone is insecure, they want you doubting too. This is how they equalize the playing field, by pulling you down to their level. But the moment you hold your ground, refuse to match their emotion, and remain completely unshaken, the room shifts. You are no longer just a participant in the moment. You are now the reference point. The others begin adjusting to you. Their tone softens. Their speed slows. Their aggression begins to feel foolish. And that's because you've taken control without confrontation. This is how you dominate, through energy, not argument. Control yourself, your tone, your face, your body, and watch the ripple effect it causes. You don't need to cut people off. You don't need to raise your voice to prove you're in charge. You only need to hold your center so tightly that others can't help but orbit you. Machiavelli knew this was the art of the ruler, not to rule by fear alone, but to rule by being unshakable. So when the pressure rises in a meeting, in a family crisis, in a confrontation, do not meet the energy, override it. Become the one thing nobody else can provide in that moment: control. And you'll find that in trying to calm yourself, you end up commanding them. Silence is not the absence of words. It is a presence, a pressure, a force that grows heavier the longer it stretches. Most people can tolerate noise. They are used to shouting, confrontation, passive aggression, emotional outbursts. But silence unnerves them. It leaves them alone with their own mind, their own insecurities, their own assumptions. And that's why Machiavelli used it as a weapon. In the middle of chaos, silence becomes a mirror, and people begin to reflect their own fears back at themselves. When others expect you to explain, and you don't. When they accuse you, and you blink instead of argue. When they wait for your defense, and all they get is stillness, the power flips. The room grows tense, not because of what you said, but because of what you refuse to. In that refusal, they lose their rhythm. They second guess their attack. And that confusion is what Machiavelli thrived on. Because silence, when used precisely, does not make you look weak. It makes you look dangerous. It signals that you do not owe them an answer, that you are not afraid, that you are watching, calculating, letting them speak first and reveal themselves. Most people panic in silence because they fear what is not being said. They will fill it with assumptions, with projections, with doubt. And you, the silent one, gain power without ever lifting your voice. That's why emotional people hate silence. They need reaction. They need something to push against. If you deprive them of that, they either burn out or unravel. Machiavelli once wrote that a ruler must learn when to speak and when to hold his tongue, because every word spent defending yourself is a brick taken from your fortress and handed to your enemy. You must understand that not everything demands a reply. In fact, the more pressure you're under, the more selective you must be, responding out of impulse, out of fear, out of anger. These are the habits of the ruled. The ruler waits, the ruler listens, the ruler watches the fire burn and only speaks once the smoke has cleared. So the next time someone challenges you, baits you, insults you, or tries to provoke you, don't answer too quickly. Let your silence grow heavy. Let them carry the weight of their own words. Let them wonder why you're not cracking. Because in that space of silence, they will start revealing more than they ever planned to. You're not there to defend. You're there to dominate. And Machiavelli knew the most terrifying man in the room is not the one who shouts, it's the one who listens, smiles slightly, and says nothing at all. There are moments when the pain is sharp, the betrayal is fresh, the failure is public, and your body wants to break. Your eyes want to water. Your voice wants to shake. You want to explain, to scream, to let them know you're hurting. But Machiavelli would tell you, never bleed in public. Never let the wolves smell blood. Because once they do, it does not matter how smart you are, how right you were, or how noble your intentions. All they see is weakness, and weakness invites attack. This is not about denying pain. Pain is real. You will be wounded. You will be humiliated. You will be abandoned, insulted, betrayed by those you fed and protected. But what you do next decides everything, because your reaction teaches others how to treat you. If you show them collapse, they'll pile on. If you show them desperation, they'll keep you there. But if you show them nothing, if you hold your face like stone, if your hands remain steady, if your breathing does not shift, they'll question what you're made of. That doubt becomes your shield. Machiavelli learned this not through theory, but through survival. He lived through exile, political humiliation, even imprisonment, but he never begged. He never made a spectacle of his suffering. He understood that pity is not loyalty. It is not power. It is a temporary comfort that costs you long-term control. The truth is, most people don't want to help. They want to watch. And the more you reveal your wounds, the more they study how to reopen them. You must become your own refuge. Calm yourself in silence. Bleed behind closed doors. And when you step into the room, you wear the same expression you wore the day before. Not out of pride, but out of strategy. Because people respect what they cannot read. They admire what does not crumble. And they follow what feels unshakable. Even if inside, you're screaming, you never give them that show. You give them the version of you that remains. And in doing so, you shift the power back into your hands. It is not about being fake. It is about being untouchable. Machiavelli knew that the most dangerous man is the one who's been broken, but walks like he hasn't. Because people feel it. They sense something deeper in your silence. Something earned, something dark, something that does not need to prove anything anymore. So the next time you're cut open in public by betrayal, by humiliation, by unexpected loss, do not reach for sympathy. Do not explain. Do not flinch. Walk out of the fire the same way you walked in, and let them wonder why you're not ash. Most people break under pressure because they never trained for it. They spend their lives hoping things will go smoothly, praying they won't be betrayed, avoiding conflict like it's a curse instead of a certainty. But Machiavelli never lived under such illusions. He prepared for war in times of peace. He rehearsed betrayals before they arrived. He studied failure before it struck. That is why when others collapsed, he remained standing. Calm is not something that appears in the moment. It is built long before the crisis ever comes. You do not wait for the fire to decide. If you can survive it, you walk through smoke long before anyone sees flames. This is what separates the cold strategist from the frantic survivor. The strategist is never surprised. Not because he sees the future, but because he's already imagined it. He's already felt the loss, the embarrassment, the chaos, and created a plan anyway. And when the day comes, there's no panic. There's just execution. This is how you build psychological immunity. You expose your mind to difficulty on purpose. You visualize being insulted in public and staying calm. You imagine someone betraying you and responding with silence. You train your nervous system like a warrior trains his blade, not when the battle begins, but every day before it. Machiavelli called it foresight, the ability to recognize that fortune is a storm, and storms are inevitable. You do not curse the weather, you build a roof. And the only way to stay calm when others scream is to know deeply that you are not reacting for the first time. You've been here before in your mind, in your preparation, in the quiet hours when no one was watching. That's when power is built. Not during the speech, during the silence before it, not during the betrayal. During the nights, you trained your eyes not to blink, not during the confrontation. During the mornings, you taught your voice to stay level. And so when the test finally comes, you pass it not because you're lucky, but because you're already fluent in the language of pressure. Calm does not come from hope. It comes from rehearsal. So prepare now, not out of fear, but out of discipline. Walk through the fire in your mind so that when it shows up in reality, you don't have to flinch. You've already survived this, and that memory, even if it's imagined, will carry you through. Because when others scramble to remember who they are, you'll move like someone who never forgot. And Machiavelli would smile at that. Not because you won, but because you planned to. In every conflict, there comes a moment when the other side begins to burn themselves out. Their energy peaks, their anger spills over, their voice trembles with exhaustion. And that is the moment Machiavelli waited for. Not the beginning of the fight, but the end of their stamina. Most people rush into conflict, believing that speed is strength, that the first blow matters most. But Machiavelli understood that real power is patience. Let them shout, let them push, let them try to dominate the room. And while they burn through their emotional fuel, you remain still. You watch, you breathe, you let their fire consume itself. Because fire, by nature, cannot last forever. And the ones who use their voice too quickly, who demand to be heard right away, always reveal too much. They expose their insecurities. They give away their strategy. They grow reckless in their need to win. And while they do that, you wait. You give them no resistance, because you are not there to win the first round. You are there to outlast them. Machiavelli did not interrupt his enemies. He let them speak themselves into exhaustion. He let them show their entire hand while he said nothing. And when the room grew quiet, when the storm had passed, he stepped forward, calm, measured, precise. By then, it was already too late for his opponents. They had given everything they had, and he hadn't even started. This is the weapon most people never train: restraint, the ability to outlast the chaos, the ability to let others flail and scream and break while you remain intact. Not because you are emotionless, but because you understand the power of timing. You know that leadership does not belong to the first voice, it belongs to the last, and you're not afraid to wait for it. This waiting is not passive, it is psychological warfare. Every second you remain calm, they grow more unsettled. They question why you're not reacting. They push harder, hoping to break you, but you do not break. You simply watch them undo themselves. And when their fire finally dies, when their words start to stutter, when their eyes lose focus, that is when you speak. And your voice, cold and clear, cuts through the ashes like a blade. Machiavelli knew that wars are won not by force, but by endurance. You let the other side believe they're winning. You let them drain themselves dry. And when they finally fall silent, you're still standing untouched, unbothered, undeniable. So next time someone storms at you with pressure, rage, or fear, do not match them, let them burn. You are not the flame. You are the stone it fails to scorch. Calm is not inaction. Calm is not passive. Calm is what you choose before the strike. Because when you do move, when you do speak, decide, or act, it must be final, decisive, unshakable. That is the difference between those who survive pressure and those who master it. Machiavelli understood this with brutal clarity. He did not believe in reacting. He believed in responding, coldly, strategically, not in the heat of emotion, but in the silence that follows it. And when the moment came to move, he made sure the move was irreversible. Because hesitation after action is weakness. There is a precision to true calm. It is not about being endlessly patient. It is about knowing exactly when to act and making that action so sharp that it leaves no room for confusion. This is why silence matters, why stillness matters. Not because they are the end goal, but because they are the preparation, the gathering of force, the narrowing of focus. You must never explode. You must strike quietly, once, and with no apology. Machiavelli believed that when a ruler punishes, it must be so swift, so clean, that it is never questioned again. The same is true in your life. When you decide to walk away, walk, don't explain. When you choose to speak, speak with clarity, not emotion. When you draw the line, draw it in stone, not sand. The calm person who finally acts becomes terrifying because no one knows what they're holding back. The calm person who finally speaks is heard because every word cuts through the noise like thunder in a quiet sky. This is how you take control without fighting for attention. By waiting, by watching, and when your hand finally moves, it moves like a verdict. Pressure wants to make you emotional, but emotion scatters power. Calm concentrates it. And when you are fully calm, fully composed, your action will land like a hammer, not because it's loud, but because it's perfect. So stop explaining, stop warning, stop making half moves in hopes of being understood. Breathe, observe. Let the room fill with tension. Let others act in desperation. And then, when the time is right, respond once. A response that ends the conversation. A move that rewrites the dynamic. A tone that silences the crowd. This is what Machiavelli mastered. Not charm, not approval, precision. When you act with calm, your moves cannot be undone. Your presence cannot be ignored. Your words cannot be dismissed. Because you didn't waste them in panic. You saved them for war. And now that the moment has arrived, you do not blink. You do not shake. You move once, and the world moves with you. In the end, it is not the loudest that rule. It is not the one who moves first, nor the one who burns brightest in the beginning. It is the one who remains. the one who does not break when pressure mounts, who does not collapse when accused, who does not chase approval when the room turns cold. This is the final truth Machiavelli understood. Calm is not just a strategy, it is the final form of power. Because pressure does not go away, the world will test you again and again. People will betray you, expectations will rise, enemies will disguise themselves as allies. There will always be noise. But if you have mastered the discipline of calm, you will walk through each fire untouched, not because you are invincible, but because you refuse to let the world decide your temperature. While others scream to be heard, you become the one they listen to. While others rush to act, you become the one they follow. While others fall apart, you remain intact. The calm do not need to prove anything. Their stillness speaks louder than declarations. Their silence cuts deeper than accusations. They do not chase control, they become it. This is what separates rulers from the ruled. The ruler does not need the chaos to stop in order to think. He carries clarity within him. He is calm, not because the situation is peaceful, but because he has trained himself not to flinch, and in doing so, he becomes the reference point for everyone else. People lean on the calm. They defer to them. They fear them, admire them, depend on them. All without the calm person ever raising their voice. Calm is not weakness. Calm is control under threat. Calm is vision under noise. Calm is power that doesn't need a crown to be felt. Machiavelli watched empires collapse, not because they were attacked, but because the people leading them panicked when things didn't go their way. He saw generals destroy themselves by reacting too soon. Princes lose their allies by trying to explain too much. Leaders lose their cities because they cracked when the pressure rose. He never forgot those lessons, and neither should you. Let the world roar. Let people test you. Let the moment stretch. You are not here to compete for attention. You are here to become undeniable. And the only way to do that is to remain calm long enough for the noise to burn itself out. Then, when the silence returns, you will still be standing, clear, focused, unbothered. And the world will remember that while everyone else broke, you did not. You were the calm, you were the ruler, and that, Machiavelli would say, is the rarest power of all. If this made you think differently, if you want more lessons like this that most people never learn, subscribe to Dark Blue Psychology. And remember, the calm will always outlast the chaos.